Hi guys, you're welcome to my channel. Does your pants or your trousers always look like this on the crotch area, or does it always have these SSCs on the crotch area? So this video is meant for you. In this video, I'll be sharing with you guys two tutorials in one video. Number one is how to perfectly draft a trouser to avoid a saggy crotch area, and also how to draft a perfect boot cut trouser. Do not skip any part of this video and I'll just get started right away with today's tutorial, guys. So first things first, of course you know the measurements we are going to work with, which is right here on the screen. So I have my curve rule, I have my stretch ruler. If you have your trouser curve, you're actually okay to also work with that. So first things first, I'm going to start by marking 3 inches from the edge of my paper. So if you're on a bigger size, you can actually go ahead to mark 4 to 5 inches points, just the way I did here. So after that, I'll use my stretch ruler to connect all of these points I made right here. The step 2 is to mark your joining allowance. So here I'm marking half of an inch, which is going to serve as my joining allowance. So I'll connect this into a straight line. So this trouser is going to have a band of 1.5 inches. This simply means that I'm going to subtract 1.5 inches from my hip length. So I took 1.5 inches above my paper and I got my hip length of 9 inches. But for the crotch area, please, you're not subtracting any 1.5 inch. You're not subtracting anything at all while marking your crotch length, okay? So now for my knee length, I went ahead to also place 1.5 inches above my paper to mark my knee length of 20 inches. So the next thing I'll mark here now is my full trouser length and 2 inches extra for hemming. So having marked all of these points, I'll connect all these points into a straight line. So I'll label this my ankle and my allowance. So the next I'll extend is my knee line, and that's my crotch line, and the other is my hip line. So I'll just go ahead and label all of these things. So to get your crotch, don't forget that you sit on a flat surface and measure from your waist up to this flat surface. I would have said this earlier, but it skipped my mind. So now I'll start by dividing my waist measurement into 4, and I'll mark it from that line I marked inwardly. So on my hip line, I'll divide my hip by 4 and I'll mark whatever I cut right there. So I'll use my curve rule to connect from my waist down to my hip line. So whatever I have on my hip line, I'm going to bring it down to my crotch area, just like this. So the next, I'm going to take my thigh measurement on my crotch line. So the thigh circumference I'm working with here is 23 inches, and it will be divided into 2. So do note that on the waistline you divide by 4, on the hip line divide by 4, but when you get to your crotch, that's where you take your thigh measurement divided by 2 and not 4. So having got that already, I went ahead to make the point right there and extend that line to that part. So I went up by 1.5 inches because I'm trying to get my curve at this point. So after getting my curve now, I'll go ahead now and take the full measurements I have from the starting line of my crotch to the place where it ended. So once I got the measurements, I went ahead now to divide it into 2, and I got the midpoint of what I had there, so you can see. And I'll go ahead now to extend this all the way to my knee line, all the way to my full length. So now having done this, I'll come to my knee line and take my knee circumference. So whatever I have, I went ahead to divide it again into 2. So the final division is what I am going to place the half of it at the center line, because the line I marked across is the center line. So I'm going to place it on that center line and mark what I got right there. So guys, after this, I'll repeat the same thing on my ankle. I worked with an ankle measurement of 13 inches. So 13 divided into 2 is 6.5. So that's 6.5. I went ahead to get the half of 6.5. The half of it will be placed exactly on this my center line, and that's just what I did on my knee line as well. So guys, having done this now, I'm just simply going to connect the line I have on my crotch down to my knee line. So please guys, while connecting this, please do ensure you do this properly. As you can see from mine, Mine is actually, will I say, quarter inch away from where I actually took my knee measurements, but it's nothing to be worried about because it's still going to fit properly. Trust me guys on this. So that is just that, and I'll go ahead now and connect for the other side of my trouser. So after connecting all of this, now there is no allowance that is needed for this front trouser. No allowance is added, no allowance is needed. So you're just going to cut out exactly the way you drafted out, because all the allowance needed for this trouser will be added to the back panel of our trousers. So that is just simply it. And I'll also go ahead and cut out the crotch area as well. So guys, having done this, now I'll go ahead now to get another pattern paper, and I'll place my front pattern paper right here on this. So guys, now the next thing I'm simply going to do now is to mark 2 inches from that part facing my crotch, because the back trouser is usually higher than the front trouser at the waist. So I'll mark 2 inches upwards like that, and I'm going to connect it to meet the side waist of my front trouser, because this is meant to align at the waist, of course. So from that my crotch, I went ahead to mark 2 inches from my crotch down to the full length of this trouser. So after marking these 2 inches all the way down to my trouser length or my full length, at the crotch area, from that point I marked 1 inch. So do take note of that. So I went ahead to also extend that slant line into the 1 inch I just marked. So go ahead and retrace this properly or appropriately. So here are the allowance that you need to add, and once you've added all of this, you have nothing to worry about. So for the side of this trouser, addition of allowance is actually optional. For me, if I'm making a trouser for a client, I usually add 1 inch to half of an inch depending on the size of my client. But while making mine, I do not add any allowance to the side. That is the part I'm adding half of an inch now. So it's totally up to you. Like I said earlier, for me, I don't add any half of an inch to the side. If I'm making for a bigger size, I add 1 inch, and for a smaller size, half of an inch. So the clients I'm making this for is actually on a smaller size, so that was why I went ahead to just add half of an inch at the side of this my trouser. Okay, so that is just that, and we are done drafting the back and the front of this trouser. So guys, I'll cut this out now. Remember that anything called allowance has been added to all of this piece right here. So after cutting out, this is what I have now. I'll go ahead now to extend the line on my knee length to the back of my trouser. So I also do the same for my crotch, and once I'm done, I'm going to just simply remove this one part of the trouser. So I'm going to get another paper, because at this point I'll be giving this my extension for the boot cut. So I'm going to get a paper that is at least long from the knee of my trouser to the full length. So this extension, you can actually start from exactly your knee line, or you can go below 1 inch from your knee line if you wish. So for the extension as well, you can also mark your desired inches, but for me, because I want it moderate, I usually mark 5 to 6 inches. But if you want your boot cut actually very full, you can go ahead guys and mark as much inches as you like. So I'm connecting directly to my knee line, but if you feel like you want it to be an inch below your knee line, feel free to also mark that. You're also on a safer side. So after that, now guys, you can see how I went ahead to cut this out. So after cutting this same process and method, I'm also going to repeat it for the front panel of my trouser piece. Okay, I'll also place this from my knee line, I'm going to pin this down first. Then from my full length, I'll mark my extension of 6 inches. You cannot mark 6 inches for the back panel of your trouser and mark 5 inches for the front. It needs to be of the same size and inches, so everything needs to align properly. Okay, so you can see that I went ahead now to connect this directly into my knee line. So that was the essence of retracing back the knee line I had for my front trouser. So I went ahead now to cut this out, and this is simply it. And I'll go ahead now to cut this all out on my actual fabric I'm working with, and also on the lining piece, guys. So here is the drafting part, and while cutting, I'll add half of an inch at the extensions I gave, just as you can see right here. So this is it, and guys, here is the end of how to draft a perfect boot cut trouser without having any saggy crotch area. So if you're interested in learning how to fix a crotch zip and a pocket to your trouser perfectly, I'll be dropping another tutorial on how to assemble all of this piece perfectly. So till then, see you guys on the part 2 of this tutorial. Bye.